buckle up, folks, because on PhD Lyrics, we are about to go full-on academic on Albania's Eurovision 2025 entry.
We're talking Shkodra, Elektronike, and their dance track, Zjerm.
Yeah, think like a really intense scholarly takedown, but for, pop music.
But you, dear listener, you get it right. There's always something deeper going on.
Exactly. So on the surface, you hear this catchy dance beat, the repetition of that Shkodra, which means shine in Albanian.
Yeah, total Eurovision banger energy.
For sure. But let's get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? The very first line drops. Nidi miedo in kiria sast, no paranoia. Talk about starting strong.
Well, it is interesting, right, to just come out and say no paranoia like that.
It feels a little bit like they're protesting too much.
It's like maybe deep down there's this underlying anxiety that they're trying to just deny completely.
Yeah, or maybe even convince themselves of.
Exactly. And don't forget that little at the end, too, that sigh.
Right. It's like a tiny little crack in that facade of super chill optimism.
Like a little voice whispering, are you sure about that?
Okay, so we're already in a pretty complex headspace, right? But then the next line is pashutit ilbite dukit pota, ue, which brings in that whole rainbow after the rain thing.
That's the classic image of hope, right? New beginnings.
But I feel like in Albanian culture, rainbows have a lot more baggage than just like a pretty weather event.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're tied to all sorts of folklore and mythology, the whims of fate, that kind of thing.
So then how do we read that UA? It's more than just oh, wow, a rainbow.
Right. It could be relief after a huge metaphorical storm has passed.
Or maybe a little cynical, yeah, beauty is fleeting. This rainbow's going to disappear eventually.
We could even get all fancy and bring in the concept of the sublime, that mix of awe and terror,
So basically, hope itself can be both amazing and terrifying.
It's a lot to unpack from one UA, for sure.
Totally. But then things take another turn. We get these lines about a world with no ambulances, no arrogance. Time doesn't change. Is this some kind of Albanian utopia?
Now that's where the fun begins. Remember Plato's Republic? That whole idea of a perfect society.
I vaguely remember something about philosopher kings from my college days.
It was all theoretical, right? A way to think about big concepts like justice and virtue.
So maybe these lyrics are doing the same thing. It's not literally about Albania.
It's more like they're building this perfect world just to critique our own messed up one.
Okay, I can see that.
Okay.
So no ambulances because we're all so vulnerable and need help.
No arrogance because pride and selfishness are a big problem.
And time standing still because we're all terrified of change and, death.
It's heavy stuff.
You're telling me, okay, so I'm starting to get how even the simplest lines can have all these crazy layers.
That's what we're here for.
But what about that line? Profundovan en uje, korismuta kocha. No. Things get a bit darker there, don't they?
Totally. It's like someone drowning, literally, or maybe metaphorically, like their voice is being stifled.
Their voice is being drowned out, you mean? By forces bigger than that?
Exactly. And that no, at the end, it's like a scream, a refusal to be silenced.
We could even tie that into Foucault and power dynamics, right? Who gets to speak, who gets shut down?
It brings up all these questions about social justice and agency. It's a really powerful line.
So far, we've got paranoia, utopia, and a stifled voice. This is dense.
We're just getting started. We haven't even gotten to this Zjerm motif, tribal dances, or the whole pure heart thing.
Don't worry, we'll be back. We've got a lot more overthinking to do.
Get some rest, folks. We'll see you back here soon for part 2.
And we're back, folks, ready for another round of extreme lyric analysis.
You know it.
Last time we left off with a million unanswered questions and a strong sense that Zjerm is hiding some serious depth.
This song is basically an onion of meaning, and we're going to keep peeling those layers.
So let's dig into one of those layers. Literally, Zjerm. It means dew in Albanian, right?
It does, but think about the connotations.
Okay, so moisture, freshness, that whole morning dew vibe.
Yeah, but dew also disappears pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It evaporates in the sun.
Oh, so are they saying that hope, that Shkodra they keep talking about, is also fleeting?
It's definitely a possibility. Kind of fits with that existentialist vibe we were picking up on.
Life is a bummer. Nothing lasts forever.
Jean-Paul Sartre would be all over this.
Sartre at Eurovision? Now, that's a collab I'd pay to see. Okay, but back to Zjerm. The lyrics also connected to tribal dances and this whole idea of searching for light.
Tribal dances, they usually have a pretty deep ritualistic meaning, right?
Like connecting to something ancient and primal.
Exactly. So maybe Zjerm is like this bridge between the individual and the collective.
We could even throw in Jung's collective unconscious here, right? all those shared archetypes and stuff.
Boom, we just went full psych 101.
And this is a lot for a Tuesday afternoon.
But hey, that's what you signed up for with PhD lyrics.
True. Okay, so another line that's been stuck in my head is Kryoni wonje semirti pasterino, which means create in me a pure heart. It sounds almost like a prayer.
That yearning for purity, that's a theme that pops up everywhere, you know. Religion, philosophy, art.
Yeah, the human heart, it's like the source of so much messiness, but we also want it to be pure.
So is it even possible to have a truly pure heart? Or is that just an ideal that we can never reach?
I mean, is that what the dew is about? That cleansing renewal?
It could be, but remember, dew is also super temporary. It doesn't last.
So maybe purity is like that too. Always under threat from the harsh realities of the world.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but yeah, maybe that's the point.
Okay, we can't ignore it any longer. The repetition of shindraite, shindraite, shindraite. It's everywhere.
Well, repetition is a classic rhetorical device, right? It's meant to stick in your brain.
Like an earworm. But why shindraite? Why this need for shining?
Think about all the stuff we've talked about. The dew, the tribal dances, the longing for a pure heart.
So shindraite is more than just physical light, right? It's like a metaphor.
Exactly. It's about inner light finding meaning in this crazy world.
Maybe even like a divine spark.
From a simple word to the divine spark, that's the power of overanalyzing.
But there's still so much to talk about. Those 7 knives piercing in the soul, the political stuff, the Jungian shadows lurking everywhere.
Don't worry, we'll get to all of it. But for now, let's just bathe in the glow of Shkodra.
Stay tuned, folks, because the Symphony of Zjerm analysis isn't over yet. We'll be back for the grand finale in part 3. Welcome back to PhD Lyrics, where we dissect pop songs with the precision of a brain surgeon.
We've gone deep on existentialism. We've wrestled with Jung, and now it's time to tackle the political side of Zjerm.
Time to get our political science hats on again.
Exactly. So remember those lines about a world with no soldiers, no orphans, no plastic in the ocean, lilacs instead of oil?
Yeah, it sounds pretty idyllic, right?
Nah.
But is it just like naive wishful thinking, or is there something more going on?
But that's the question, isn't it? See, this is where a good critical lens comes in handy.
Hit me with that critical lens.
Well, think of it this way. Maybe this perfect world they're describing is actually a form of resistance.
Resistance against what?
Against, like, the powers that be, the systems that create those problems in the first place?
So like a sneaky political message hidden inside a catchy Eurovision tune.
It's pretty clever when you think about it. By showing us this utopia, they're forcing us to look at the flaws in our own world.
No soldiers, because war is terrible.
Yeah.
No orphans, because social injustice is rampant. Clean oceans, because we need to take care of the planet.
Exactly. Zjerm isn't just a song. It's like a call to action, a manifesto in disguise.
All right, Shkodra, Elektronike, I see you.
Okay.
But, okay, no revolution is complete without acknowledging the past, right?
Right, which brings us to those 7 knives piercing the soul, ouch.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense image.
And then number 7, it's not just a random number, right? 7 deadly sins, 7 chakras, 7 days of creation. It's loaded with symbolism.
It suggests like a completeness, a whole lot of pain.
So maybe those knives aren't just about one person's suffering. They represent like a collective trauma, the scars of history.
We could even connect this to the idea of the wounded healer, right? Someone who's been through a lot of pain but uses that to help others.
It's possible. Maybe the singer is trying to do that through this song, offering a message of hope and resilience.
So we've got political critique, collective trauma, the wounded healer, and we haven't even talked about that final line.
The one about being thirsty for fire and light and searching in darkness.
Yeah, it's like this stark reminder that the search for meaning, that Shkodra is a constant struggle.
Exactly. It's like they're saying there are forces out there that want to keep us in the dark, but we have to keep fighting for the light.
Wow, okay, so Zjerm has it all now. Political commentary, ancient symbolism, existential angst.
It's a microcosm of the human experience, right?
Yeah.
The highs, the lows, the struggle to find our place in the world.
And to think it all started with a catchy Eurovision song.
It just goes to show you music has this incredible power to move us, to make us think, to even spark a revolution.
So next time you're belting out your favorite tune in the shower, remember there might be a whole universe of meaning hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah, and who knows, with a little overthinking and a dash of pretentiousness, you might even find yourself on PhD Lyrics one day.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into Zjerm. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the heart of a Eurovision banger.
And if anyone ever tells you you're thinking too much, just tell them you're engaging in PhD-level lyric analysis.
That will shut them up for sure.
Yeah.
But seriously, subscribe to PhD Lyrics for more absurdly over-the-top analyses of your favorite songs.
And never forget, Vazdo mi shtrejte, shtrëndrajte, shine on everyone.